week I had received a question from one of you, my viewers, and the question was, how do I get approved for more books on NetGalley? Today I'm going to talk about 3 tips that I have used to get more books on NetGalley. Using these 3 tips, I have been approved for approximately 40 books in the last 2 months. And I would have been approved for more, but I stopped requesting them. I wanted to give myself a chance to read down the books that I had requested. So let's dive in and step back and talk a minute. What is NetGalley? So NetGalley is a wonderful resource where you can go in, all of you as reviewers, you can go into this portal in NetGalley and request books that are about to be released. So these would be known as ARCs, Advanced Reader Copies. They're not yet widely available to the public. So you would go in, you would request the book, then the publisher would go in and they would review your data and then either approve you or reject you. If you're approved, you go in and you would download the ebook to either your tablet or your phone or your e-reader. You would read the book, and then after that you would go back and you write a review on NetGalley's website. Then you have the option of pushing that review to your social media accounts, either to GoodReads or Twitter, and you are expected to give an honest review. The publishers really want to know, is this a good, fast-moving book, or is this a slow book that's going to be very difficult to sell? The book industry is very cutthroat these days. It's very difficult in the current landscape. So they need to know, is this a book where we should invest our marketing dollars and promote and print a bunch of copies? Or is this a book that we really need to kind of cut our losses and move on from? So that being said, how do you get these books? If you're really interested in a book, how do you get one of these books? So my first tip is build your audience. So what do I mean by that? When you go into GoodReads and you set up your profile, there's kind of an About Me section, and in there, they're going to ask to link to your social media accounts. The social media accounts that NetGalley is interested in, it's GoodReads, Twitter, LinkedIn. Then there's a section at the bottom that just below that, it will say, where do you talk about books / your blog? For me, that would be, I have a copy of the link to my channel. So NetGalley, there's metrics they can see. One, they can see how helpful of a reviewer you are. So how many people are giving you likes and comments on your reviews. They can also see how many people that you're connected to. So if they can only give out 500 copies of a book, but you only have 4 connections, that's not going to be a very big social media blast. If you have somebody if you have a blog and you have 100,000 people that are getting your blog, or if you're on YouTube and you have 250,000 subscribers, that's going to carry much more weight than someone who just is connected to 4 people. So it is a great way if you want to qualify for more of the popular books or in-demand books or the limited quantity of books that they have, then you want to build up your base. So I do have some tips for how to build up your base. Every day I am on GoodReads. Every day I'm on GoodReads building up my base. You can do that too. And anybody can use these tips. But the first tip is, don't wait for somebody to connect to you. If this is important to you, if this is kind of your business, where you are really serious about this, you should go on there and you need to make that first step. Send out friend requests. But the friend requests have to be targeted. So what do I mean by targeted? You want people who are active on GoodReads. You want people who are going to comment and like on your reviews. If the person hasn't signed in for 3 years, that's probably a bad sign. Also, you want to send a friend request to someone who reads similar books to you. So if your potential friend only reads romance books and you never read romance books and you hate romance books, when you post a review about a book that's not romance, the odds are that this person is not going to like your review, and they may not be able to comment on that book because that's not a book that they're very familiar with. But if you read a lot of mysteries and the person also reads a lot of mysteries and you're reading the same type of books, you can comment, it's easier to comment on each other's posts. The third kind of tip that I have, in addition to you've sent out the friend request, they've accepted your friend request. The third one is you need to invest in your friends. If you want your friends to comment and like on your videos, you should expect to do the same for them. So spend some time going in and liking things and commenting on people's reviews, because then of course most people will do likewise. The book community is very kind and respectful and welcoming for the most part. So definitely you want to invest in your base. The second tip that I have, and this one is a little bit controversial because NetGalley will actually tell you the complete opposite. NetGalley says you need to maintain a feedback ratio of 80%, 80. For me, I have requested and been approved for books when my feedback ratio is 10%, 10. And I always get feedback on the books that I take out. It's just that I requested so many books and was approved for so many, I had so many out, that my feedback ratio was really low. Again, if you've built up your base, if you have 1,500 friends on GoodReads, you're more likely to be approved for books, even if you have a really low feedback ratio, because they know that when you blast your review, 1,500 people will be getting it. So my philosophy is, if you really, really, really want a book and your feedback ratio is less than 80%, request it anyways. The worst they can do is say no, which is where you're at now. You have nothing to lose and you have everything to gain. So request books. Even if you're intimidated, request books that you really want. But tip number 3, your feedback ratio does matter. So only request books that you really are interested in reading and that you have the capacity to read. So as I mentioned earlier, I will request, sometimes my feedback ratio is low, but it's with the intent that I can always make it higher. You can recover from a bad feedback ratio or a low feedback ratio, but it's better not to get into that situation in the first place. And you also want a little bit of sanity in the process. If you are overwhelmed with books and there's only 24 hours in a day and there's no possible way that you could read all these books without either being completely sleep deprived or getting a time machine, you want to make sure that you are able to fulfill the commitments that you've made. And also keep in mind that when you request a book, they may not approve you for several days. So if you put in for a request and you don't hear back, and then you request 5 more books, if you're approved for those 5 books and a week has gone by and then they approve you, you might have another book that you were not really expecting to be there. So make sure that you leave yourself a little bit of buffer in case you do get one of those extra books kind of tacked on, or even as your feedback ratio improves, then the publishers might go back and reevaluate your request and say, okay, now this person's at 50%, they're at 80%, they grant your request, and now you have more books than you had originally planned. So try to keep your sanity and your feedback ratio up within reason. All right, however, I'm gonna level with you. Even if you follow all these tips, you still might be rejected from your favorite NetGalley book. But do not despair, because I'll give you this bonus tip. There is an app that you can request books from. It's called Libby, Libby. This is a program run through the library. So once the book is published, you can go in there and request the book for free. It may take a little bit of time for you to get the book because there might be several holds. Hopefully though, you're reading other arcs from NetGalley to keep you busy in the meantime while you're waiting for your book. But don't give up, or of course, you can always pre-order your favorite books and support your favorite author. Tell me in the comments what book you most want to read from NetGalley and what are your tips for getting approved for books on NetGalley. If you believe that books create ideas and ideas change the world, make sure you're subscribed to my channel. I'm Lisa of Troy. Peace.